This is Orson Welles, speaking from London.
The Black Museum, the repository of death. Yes, here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a skillet, a screwdriver, a photograph, all are touched by murder. Here's a .22 caliber pistol. It's a familiar object. You've seen one or its picture. You've never touched one. An elegant little weapon, blue steel, mother of pearl inlaid grip, beautiful in its dainty, snub-nosed wickedness.
A lady's weapon, wouldn't you say, Pepper?
Looks as if it wouldn't harm a fly. Pretty in its way, Inspector.
Pretty and dangerous. There ought to be a law forbidding the manufacture of these toys. Every one of them is capable of death.
Well, today, this little blue .22 can be found among the exhibits in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. It's an impressive place. The kind of echoing awe which comes from a vaulted ceiling and somber lighting. Weird, fantastic, with a harsh, real fantasy that comes with murder. Here lies death, and so neatly. Each object placarded with a small white card labeled with black lettering, name, place, date, disposition of the case. Here's an odd-looking ashtray, soapstone. It's carved rather nicely with the crouching figure of a woman. Something decorative for your living room, but observe closely now the red-brown stain on the rim. Lift up the tray, hold it by the figure of the woman. Oh, yes, it's comfortable in your hand, and suddenly, this is a weapon. Ah, here we are, the little blue .22. Well, it's silent now. It was silent, too, during Vivian Davis's cocktail party in London's smart, sophisticated West End. In Vivian's quite chic apartment. It was not destined to be silent, though. Not very long. It's a nice place, Vivian's apartment, if you go for ultra-modern glass and metal combinations. Nice people, too. Well, nice looking, anyway. Young men are quite impeccable. The young ladies are lovely, lush, well aware of the well-put-together attractiveness. Oh, yes, these are the chic young people.
Larry, darling, have you been watching Vivian and Donald?
What else, sweet? They are at dagger points, aren't they?
Well, frankly, Larry, if Viv has one more martini, she'll kill Donald with a look.
An alcoholic look, at any rate. But why all the fuss and bother? If Donald wants to play, she ought to let him. I know at least 3 males were perfectly willing to give Viv a time, really.
Including yourself, Larry, my sweet?
No, darling, I'm the 4th. But then why bother?
A trifle strange, isn't it? The ultra-sophisticated, the over-civilized, and yet, beneath the polish, the same old jealousy that you can find in savages. Oh, yes, simple jealousy. For instance, at this moment, Vivian herself is approaching the chrome and plastic bar where Donald is mixing a drink.
Donald, haven't you had enough? You're quite tight, you know.
Am I? Really?
I asked you, Donald, haven't you had enough?
I don't believe I have. Will you have one, dear?
I've had enough, let me tell you. This is my party. You might be polite enough to pay some attention to me and a little less to that strawberry blonde.
She's quite attractive in a leggy sort of way.
Oh, yes, quite elemental beneath the polished surface. An interesting situation. It continues, of course, as long as the party lasts. It continues, as a matter of fact, well past the end of the party, even to the moment when May and Larry are making their farewells, the last of the guests to go.
Oh, it was simply marvelous, Viv, darling. Just delightful.
I always adore your parties, Viv. The liquor flows like water.
Oh, thank you both for coming. My little parties wouldn't be the same without you. Isn't that so, Donald?
Huh? Yes, yes, of course.
Coming, Donald, old son?
Well, I don't exactly...
Oh, Larry, please.
What? Oh, put my foot in it, haven't I? I'm sorry, old man. Au revoir, Viv. Let the martinis run again sometime soon.
Bye, darling. Ring me, won't you?
Oh, soon, darling. Quite soon.
Donald's for it now. Did you see the look in her eye?
Come along, dear. Don't be catty.
Oh, I don't know.
The party's over now. Silence descends on the carpeted hallway for a moment or two. And then, through the muffling walls...
You stupid little, silly little beast on that woman.
Oh, stop it, Viv. I'm not interested in her. I've
Don't
told
you
you
make
time
me look
and
such a
time again.
perfect idiot.
Man versus woman.
Why you never leave
A
me?
jealous woman. Where does it go? Isn't it obvious? Of course. Somebody's bound to be hurt. Inspector Summers and Detective Pepper arrived quickly from the yard.
This seems to be the weapon, Inspector. A .22. Blue steel, mother-of-pearl grip.
A lady's weapon, wouldn't you say, Pepper?
Looks as if it wouldn't harm a fly. Pretty in its way, Inspector.
Pretty and dangerous. There ought to be a law forbidding the manufacture of these toys. Every one of them is capable of death.
Funny,
What is?
the body out here on the landing.
Yes. Well, we'll find the reason for that shortly. Not much blood. 22s don't make much of a hole. Stay here, Pepper. I want the pathologist to see the body before it goes to the morgue. You know the procedure. I'll be inside with the prime and only suspect.
Yes, sir. I understand.
All right. Tell me how it happened.
Don't you dare to talk to me like that.
Take hold of yourself, Miss Davis. I need the answers to a few questions. I'll answer that.
Don't you dare. That's my telephone.
Yes? No. This is Inspector Summers of Scotland Yard. I see. I'm sorry, Lady Munsey, you can't speak to your daughter just now. Yes, she'll be coming down to the yard. You can come there if you wish. Goodbye.
Now will you leave me alone? You know who my mother is.
Which do you prefer, to answer my questions here or to come down to the yard?
I refuse to answer anything.
That won't look well in the report, miss.
Oh, get out of here. Get out.
Take
now.
hold of yourself, Miss Davis.
I've told you and told you. Donald and I were arguing. I suppose I grabbed the gun from under the pillow where I keep it. He tried to take it away from me. And next I knew there was a shot and he was mumbling something about a doctor. And then he was dead. Oh, now leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Inspector Summers felt that further questioning was indicated. The location he chose was his own office at the yard.
Where did you get the gun, Miss Davis?
My husband gave it to me several years ago.
Are you married?
I was. I'm divorced.
Inspector Summers thought of many questions.
Where did you struggle over the gun?
In the bedroom.
I see. Why do you use linoleum for a floor covering in the bedroom?
Oh, because it's easy to keep clean, and because it's chic, and because... Oh, what has that to do with Donald?
I'm asking the questions, Miss Davis.
Oh, yes, there were many, many questions.
How long have you lived at that address? How long did you know Donald Martin? Have you ever bought any ammunition for that gun? What were you quarreling about?
It went on and on. And finally...
Very well, Miss Davis. We shan't hold you. But don't leave London. And your mother is waiting for you. You better go home with her. We're sealing your apartment.
An inconvenient matter, violent death from a gunshot wound. Apartments are sealed, people investigate. One's whole life is turned inside out. And then there are the experts.
The scientific facts contradict some of Miss Davis's statements, Inspector.
They do? For instance?
There's no evidence of any scorching of the clothing round the bullet hole. From that fact and the spread of the smoke stain, I deduce that the gun was held from 3 to 6 inches from Martin's chest. As the blood ran down the chest, he must have been standing at the time. It would be practically impossible for him to hold the weapon himself in that position.
Could he have clutched the barrel, say, in an attempt to take it away from Miss Davis?
In that case, his fingers would be singed, or at least blackened. They're not. I do not believe that the man was touching the weapon at all when it was fired.
An embarrassing conclusion, to say the least. There were other things.
I've checked Martin's shoes at the morgue, Inspector.
Well?
If they struggled in that bedroom, on that polished linoleum floor, his shoes would have had to scratch the floor. They're leather-soled, and they have metal taps on the tips.
Very good. Another discrepancy. Now, Pepper, I think we'd better have a bit of a talk with the neighbors. Are you certain of that, Mrs. Merritt?
I am positive. It's not the first time they yelled at each other, those two, and the walls are thin.
Do you have it down, Pepper?
Yes, sir. They had a quarrel about 2 weeks ago. He left. She leaned out of the window, only half-dressed, and shouted at him, "Laugh, baby, laugh for the last time." And then she fired a gun at him.
Thank you. Now then, Mrs. Merritt, before the shot last night, did you catch any of the words they said?
His? Oh, no, sir. But, well, her bedroom is next to mine, and I heard her say as clear as day and at the top of her lungs, "I will kill you."
Thank you, Mrs. Merritt. Anything else?
No, sir.
Very well. Let's go, Pepper. All right, Pepper. I think we have the makings of a case. Pick her up. We'll book her for willful murder.
And today, the little blue 22, which was to play such an important part in the case, can be seen among the other exhibits in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
As the inspector said, they felt they had a case. The evidence was piling up. Vivian Davis was arrested. Her defense counsel was a distinguished member of the bar, and the prosecutor assigned was no less brilliant. But some of the conversation about the case was, well, a lot less brilliant.
Why, if Larry and I had stayed, we might have seen the whole thing. And darling, those letters. Imagine leaving letters like that lying in your bureau drawer, where anyone might find them. And do you suppose the prosecution will use them for evidence? This is one trial I simply shall not miss.
Let me say here and now, if May owns a gun, I'm walking out, and at once. But Viv always was unstable, you know. That's the kind who'll pull a gun on you when you least expect it. Not for me, old man. Not for me.
I always said she was no better than you'd think. Wild parties at all hours, firing guns around, drinking. Oh, I dare say the woman wasn't happy. But then who is? Now I ask you, who is?
Poor Viv. I understand the food in prison is all starches.
Seen the headlines? This is a juicy one, what?
I'm to be a witness? You don't say. Really now, you don't say.
They tried the case in public gossip long before it came to proper trial. And when the proper trial began, the courtroom was crowded naturally with bright young women and polished young men, the familiars of the defendant. This, however, failed to ruffle the solemnity of a British court.
I shall permit no demonstrations. At the least lapse from proper decorum, I shall have the courtroom cleared.
And that settled that. The trial proceeded. Vivian Davis, in simple black, sat in the dock between the two wardresses assigned to guard her. On the witness stand, the pathologist repeated his evidence and his conclusions for the prosecution. There was no cross-examination. With Inspector Summers, it was another matter.
Inspector, you heard the prison doctor testify that when Miss Davis was admitted to the prison after her arrest, he found bruises on her arms and on one thigh.
Yes, sir.
And that such bruises might have been sustained in a struggle.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Now then, in your experience, have you found that when one person handles a gun, that person's fingerprints are usually found on the weapon?
That has been my experience.
However, if two parties struggled for possession of a certain weapon, would there be fingerprints?
In most cases, no, sir. They tend to smudge or eliminate each other's prints.
This weapon, which you've identified and which has been entered in evidence as Exhibit A, did you find this weapon at the scene of the alleged crime?
I did.
Did you examine it carefully?
I did.
Did you have it tested for fingerprints?
I did.
Did you find any?
Yes, sir.
How many sets?
Only one set of prints were on that gun.
Whose were they, Inspector? Now tell the jury, please, whose fingerprints were on that gun?
Only my own.
One more point, Inspector. You stated that you found a bullet in the wall of the bedroom, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you any reason to believe this bullet was fired on the night of the alleged crime?
It could have been fired at any time, I suppose.
Thank you, Inspector. That's all.
Mrs. Merritt, the eager next-door neighbor, had her proverbial day in court.
Yes, sir. Just as I told the inspector, she screamed at him, hanging out of the window only half-dressed, and then she fired a shot at him.
Counsel for the defense spent little time in the cross-examination of Mrs. Merritt.
Madam, did you actually see Miss Davis fire a pistol or gun of some sort at the deceased?
I heard the shot after she yelled at him.
You said she was only half-dressed at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you must have seen her.
Well, I took one look, and after that I only listened.
Why? Why, Mrs. Merritt?
When a woman is in her condition, no other woman cares to watch her.
I see. This is your opinion.
It certainly is.
Your Lordship, I respectfully request that the answers to the last two questions be stricken from the record as constituting an opinion and not evidence. Further, on the grounds that opinions are not warranted, as the witness is not qualified as an expert.
Well...
The clerk will strike the last two answers from the record, and the jury is instructed to ignore the testimony. Proceed.
No further questions. Thank you, Mrs. Merritt.
Back and forth, the battle raged, a battle for a woman's life. The case for the Crown was ably presented. The defense, by cross-examination, by objections in the record, sought to upset testimony to establish points which could be played upon later, the climax of the trial, when Vivian Davis herself took the stand in her own defense.
Now, Miss Davis, you understand the seriousness of this situation.
Of course.
I refer to the testimony that you once fired a gun at Donald Martin from your bedroom window. Is this true?
No, it's not true.
What did happen that evening?
He'd come to see me. He'd asked me for money to pay a gambling debt, and I refused. We quarreled, and he left. I was furious, and I called to him from my window. Then I went back into the room and fired one shot to make him think I'd killed myself.
What happened then?
Oh, Donald... Mr. Martin came rushing back, and we were friends again.
Miss Davis, have you ever pointed a weapon at Mr. Martin?
No, never.
Have you wanted to?
No, never.
Did you shoot him the night he died?
No!
Have you any recollection of his having spoken to you between the time he was shot and the moment he died?
I'll never forget it as long as I live.
What did he say?
He said, I wish the doctor would hurry. I want to tell him that this was an accident. It's not your fault. He said it over and over. And then he was dead.
Thank you, Miss Davis. Your witness.
Pull yourself together, Miss Davis.
Yes, sir.
Very well. I submit, Miss Davis, that the truth of your first public quarrel is, as it was stated by a previous witness, that you did fire out of your window at Mr. Martin.
Oh, no, never. I fired in the room. I wanted to frighten him.
Miss Davis, is this your pistol?
Yes.
Is this the weapon which killed Mr. Martin?
Yes.
And on the night this gun, your gun, killed Mr. Martin, you had a quarrel, a second quarrel.
Yes.
You were, to put it simply, jealous of his behavior with other women.
Oh, I was so jealous I threatened to kill myself.
You threatened to kill yourself?
Yes.
Then why did you shout, I will kill you?
No, I never said that.
What did you say, Miss Davis?
I may have said I'll shoot myself. The other, I never said. Why should I? I was jealous, but that was because I loved him. Oh, you've got to believe me. I loved him. I did. I did.
There was more, much more, over and over, but they never managed to shake her on the essential points.
I never pointed a gun at Donald in my life.
And, of course,
I never said I'd kill him. I said I'd kill myself.
at long last, with Vivian Davis on the verge of collapse, the prosecutor let her go. Shortly thereafter, the defense rested. Summations were brief. For the prosecution,
this woman is guilty of the crime with which she is charged. There is no doubt in our minds, nor should there be any in yours, that she held the pistol and fired the shot.
for the defense,
It is clear that no woman kills the man she loves, despite the violence of their causes. This was an accident. It is clear that it was an accident.
the presiding justice was clear and concise in his charge to the jury.
Gentlemen of the jury, in conclusion, let me advise you there are 3 possible verdicts you may return under the present indictment. Guilty of murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty of any offense. I commend the accused to your most painstaking deliberations.
The jury filed out. They stayed out for 2 long, weary hours. There was chatter in the courtroom. There always is. But even the gossip was subdued. Everybody waited. Waited.
Well, it seems perfectly incredible. A murder trial, and I've been in on it since the beginning. Well, I do hope the judge wasn't as much against her as he seemed to be.
It was really too exciting for words. I've had more dinner invitations because I know Viv. Oh, well, after all, the poor girl might be hanged, you know. Oh, grisly thought.
Well, for my part, even if she gets off, there'll be one advantage. She'll never be my neighbor again, and that will be an improvement, I'd say.
And at long last, the waiting was over. The prisoner arose in the dock at the judge's request. The foreman of the jury faced the prisoner in the court. The age-old formula was intoned by the clerk.
Members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict?
We have.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty of murder?
Not guilty.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty of manslaughter?
Not guilty.
Yet, despite that verdict, the little blue 22 can be seen today among the exhibits in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
Yes, they let Vivian Davis go free. In many minds, the question was, and still is, did Vivian Davis get away with murder? Frankly, I don't believe anyone gets away with murder. Murder stays with the killer, twisting mind and heart and soul, even in the unsuspected and therefore unsolved cases. Where Vivian Davis was concerned, perhaps the real crime was insecurity and the kind of violent jealousy that grows from fear. I don't know. That's for the psychologists, not for you and I to decide. Meanwhile, the little blue 22 remains in its customary place in Scotland Yard, in the Black Museum. And now, until we meet again next time, in the same place, and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions. The program is written by Ara Marion, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum, a repository of death. Yes, here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a kitchen knife, a roller skate, a violin string, all are touched by murder. There's a .32 caliber bullet. It's a familiar object. Brass cartridge case, snub, lead, and nose. Not very pretty to look at.
Interesting, this bullet, Sergeant. Notice the back of the cartridge case?
Yes, sir. It's for a centre-fire weapon. The firing pin of the pistol must strike the centre of the cartridge.
Right. But the weapon in which we found this bullet was a rimfire revolver. The firing pin could strike only the edge of the cartridge. That little fact, Sergeant, saved at least one life, I'd say.
Well, today, that centre-fire bullet can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Here we are, the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum. A museum of murder. Here lies death. So orderly, so well kept. Row and row. A macabre record of the violence of many generations. Each object in its place, each marked, tagged, carded with name and place and date. Each object in this room enjoyed in its life one supreme moment when the eyes of the world were upon it, and it played its silent part in a case of murder. And here we are. Here's a jeweled ring, fit for a princess, but born of a mind like the Borgias. Press the jewel, so, and a tiny point licks out, a fang, dripping death. Shake hands with your enemy. Shortly thereafter, he dies. A bathtub. Yes, a bathtub. White, smooth, shining in the dimness. Once a man floated face down in this tub. He slipped or he had been pushed. Was the mark on his skull caused by striking his head as he slipped or by a blunt weapon? In any case, he drowned. I see. The .32 caliber bullet. Even here, lying so quietly, so somberly, it's ugly. This object was made for killing. As a matter of fact, it never did kill. That's the story. It began on a London street. A dark sedan drove slowly into the stream of traffic. There were 3 young men in it. One seems quite a bit younger than the other. Even so, the car continues to cruise along.
You got everything straight, Rod?
Sure. Do you think I'm a goon?
You just want to be sure, kid. That's all. Now, what did we tell you?
I'll stay in the car till you wigwag it's all clear. Then I'll go in with you. Hey, there's a chance to park the old bus.
Kiki. Watch the fenders now. Wouldn't want nobody to ask for your license at a time like this, eh?
Maddie, leave me.
Sure, Jack, sure. Just kidding him, that's all. What's the matter? You edgy?
Cold as ice, that's me.
Yeah. Ice is what we're going to get.
All set. Let's go.
2 young men leave an automobile, stroll up the street, hands in pockets, cigarettes dangling loosely from their mouths. They walk past a busy jewelry store.
Pretty crowded. Maybe we ought to wait.
Could be. No use taking chances.
They stroll a few steps farther on. They turn, start back, quite casually.
Hey, what's the kid doing?
Oh, the guy's going into the store. Come on.
That goon must have thought we made the signal. Got your gun? What else?
Slow down now.
Here we go. Rod, what's the idea? You wigwag, didn't you?
Never mind. Let's do it.
Right.
All right, everybody. This is a hold-up.
Over against that wall. Everybody. These guns are loaded.
No! You don't take my stuff! No!
Shut up, you. Quiet. Anybody talks, I'll give it to him. Rod, grab the junk on the counters.
You there. Stand still.
You got the button. Rod, the car. Start the engine. Maddie, scram.
Stop them! Please!
Stay in that store.
Maddie, Jack, the truck. It's double parked. We can't get the car out. We're stuck behind that truck.
Run for it, kid. That way.
I can't get the car out. I can't.
Come on, Jack.
Keep moving.
Stop, you! Stop! You're the thieves! Stop! Out of my way, you!
I've got you! I've got you, please! Oh!
Now it's in the fire! Run, Betty!
A man lay dead on the sidewalk. The crowd milled around him. The black sedan stayed in its place. 3 young men disappeared in the teeming streets, disappeared completely and utterly. A few hours later, in a quiet office in Scotland Yard, Inspector Bowers and Detective Sergeant Wood looked at what they had.
Not very much of anything, have we, Sergeant?
No, sir. Descriptions which could be any of 100 men and 2 bullets.
A 45 bullet from the woodwork in the jewelry store, and the 32 which killed that fellow.
With no guns to go with them.
Well, if those boys were smart at all, they've ditched the guns.
Funny, you'd expect a lot more shooting in a thing like that.
They were conserving ammunition. Oh, well, I don't know. Circularize the descriptions, what there is of them. That's about all for the moment.
Yes, sir. 3 men, youngish, white handkerchiefs over
And that was all. Now, where do you start among 8 million people searching for 3 youngish men who may be miles away by now? Well, the answer is you don't start. You wait. You have patience. And sometimes your patience is rewarded. Sometimes sooner than you expect.
This is Wilson, Inspector. He's the cabbie who called in this morning.
Ah, how do you do, Wilson? Sit down.
Thank you, sir. Thanks very much. Wilson may have something on the jewelry store killing, sir.
Yes, well, let's hear it, Wilson.
Well, sir, I never thought about it till I seen the papers this morning. All about the hold-up and that poor fellow who got himself killed yesterday.
Yes, go on, Wilson.
Well, sir, I was taking my cab along Queensbury Road, about a block from the place where it all happened, when a fellow with a white thing round his neck hops on the running board. I've a fare, so I waves him off. Then I see him go into that big building, the Brook Building, I think it is, sir. Corner of Queensbury and Maidstone.
Oh, you're certain of this, Wilson?
Oh, yes, sir.
Anything else?
I'm not so sure of this, Inspector, but I think I saw another fellow run in the building after the one what jumped onto my cab.
Oh, very good, Wilson. Well, you may have been quite helpful. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Get your hat, Sergeant. We're going exploring.
The reward of patience. And sooner than expected, but only a bare and vague beginning. This kind of investigation takes long hours and hard work. And endless questions. Up and down the hallways of the large office building, in and out of business offices.
Did you notice any commotion in the hall yesterday around 3 o'clock?
Did a man with a white scarf around his neck take your elevator around 3 o'clock yesterday?
Did you hear any running or anything like that around 3 o'clock yesterday?
On and on, upstairs, downstairs, nothing. No one noticed anything, nothing irregular, no commotion. What was that? Did the porter notice anything?
2 fellows. One of them had a raincoat, I think. Both of them had white rags round their collars, sort of.
Oh, you're sure of this?
Oh, yes, sir. They seemed in a hurry, sort of.
Where did they go?
Which office, you mean?
That's right.
Well, I wouldn't know, sir. They went up the stairs just as I was putting some empty waste cans on the service lift.
Oh, did you see the men again?
Well, now you mention it, yes, sir, I did.
Where?
On the 3rd floor it was. I was taking my mop to the hall. One of them was sort of half sitting on the stair rail. The other fellow was looking out of the hall window that opens onto Queensbury, sir. They didn't have the white rags, sir, but they were the same fellows.
Anything else?
No, sir, not that I remember. Old Pop Saunders might know something, Inspector.
Oh, who's this Saunders?
Oh, he drives a van, sir. Been making deliveries to this place every afternoon for years.
Ah, thank you. Right, well, let's go, Sergeant. Maybe Mr. Saunders does know something. We have your address.
They reached the street outside, just as a large, rather decrepit truck, driven by an equally decrepit elderly man, pulled up to the curbstone.
You, Pop Saunders? That's me. Who are you? Sergeant Wood, Scotland Yard. This is Inspector Bowers.
Yes? Have I done something?
No, but you may have seen something that'll help us.
Yes, sir?
Were you here at this time yesterday?
Yes, sir. I'm always here. This time of day.
Well, did you notice anyone with a white scarf go into the building? Running, perhaps?
Oh, those 2. Yes, sir, I did. Funny thing, they seemed in such a hurry. One of them had a raincoat. They came out later. No scarves and no raincoat.
Now the search is on for a raincoat. scarves or handkerchiefs can go into pockets, not raincoats. The Brook building swarms with police. Every nook and cranny is inspected. In the cellar, in a dark corner.
This must be it, Inspector. Every other raincoat in the building's accounted for. Not a mark on it. Nothing.
Yeah, try ripping the lining, Sergeant.
Nothing, sir, except the manufacturer's stock tag under the armpit.
Not much, but a little at any rate.
Check the manufacturer. From there to the jobber who bought the lot in which that coat was packed. From the jobber to the retailer.
It's times like this I thank heaven for rationing. At least they have to keep a record of the clothing coupons and the names of everyone who buys anything.
A thin, tenuous trail and a mountain of sales slips to go through. But nothing strikes a chord of memory. And then, the sergeant thinks of something.
Inspector, when they make out these records, don't they write the last names first?
Yeah, you're right. They do. Oh, well, back over it again. Here, how about this, Sergeant? Mac Stanley. The other way, Stanley Mac. Remember that name, Sergeant?
Stanley Mac. Not a usual name. Yes, sir, I do. Didn't he testify at a trial about 2 years ago?
He did. The trial of Jack Georgeston. He was sent away for armed robbery. First offense. Light sentence. Pal Georgeston ought to be out by now. All right, let's get his dossier over here, Sergeant, and then invite him in for a talk. It may be interesting, if nothing else.
Well, today, that center-fire bullet can be seen in the Black Museum. It was a long chance. One man buys a raincoat. This man happens to be a witness at another man's trial. The defendant is sent to prison for armed robbery under circumstances similar to the case under investigation. The inspector in charge sends for the convicted man's dossier and finds.
Well, so Jack Georgeston was released from prison 6 days before the Queensbury killing. Well, let's have the young man into the yard, shall we, Sergeant? You'll be able to find him easily enough, I think. If not, we can suspect flight because of guilt, can't we? Send a pickup order out for him.
Jack Georgeston was found. Found quite easily in London.
Look, you haven't a thing on me, Inspector, and you know it.
Maybe, maybe not. Sergeant, show Mr. Georgeston the garment.
Here it is, Georgeston. Do you recognize it?
There's a million raincoats like that.
Yes, but not bought by Stanley Mac.
That coat.
You know it?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have nothing against the rain last week when I got out. So Stan gave me the coat.
Oh, where did you lose it?
I didn't lose it. I never lost nothing. Except a little time recently.
Yeah, we know about that.
I figured you did.
Keep a civil tongue in your head, Georgeston, understand?
Okay. Okay, I said.
Right, now, since you didn't lose this raincoat, how is it that we found it?
I loaned it to a fella. How should I know what he did with it?
Oh, who had it?
I don't remember.
Now, you receive a raincoat as a gift against the rain. Within a matter of days, you loan it to someone, but you don't remember to whom.
That's right. I don't remember.
You try him, Sergeant.
Yes, sir. Speak up, man. Who had that coat?
I don't remember.
Well, maybe I can refresh your memory. The coat's hooked up with a murder. Now, who had it?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
That was the refrain. I don't remember. Nor could they make him remember. Finally, they let him go. There was nothing to hold him on. But Inspector Bowers said...
I want a tail on him, Sergeant. 24 hours a day. We'll pick up his friends one by one and see where he leads us.
One of those friends was a boy named Rodney Hamilton.
Let me alone. I never did nothing.
How old are you, Hamilton?
17, and you got no right.
Well, we happen to know that you've been away to a reform school, Hamilton. You were caught snatching ladies' purses 2 years ago.
So what? I did me time.
You don't keep very good company, son. Georgeston has been out of prison about a week.
Well, we like each other. I'll pick my own friends.
Where were you day before yesterday, about 2:30 in the afternoon?
Home, in bed.
Ah, sleeping late, huh?
Well, I was sick. Had a fever.
We can check that, you know.
Go ahead, check it. I was at home in bed. All afternoon, all morning, and all night. I was sick.
Yes, we know. You said that before. Now, look here.
But it didn't do any good. The boy was obviously afraid. But whether of the police or of the men he knew, it was impossible to tell. Still, the patience of Scotland Yard was rewarded once again. A report came in from detectives assigned to follow both Georgeston and Hamilton. that they'd been present at a party in a bar given by a third young man named Matty Canvas.
Dossier on Canvas, Inspector.
Ah, thank you. Oh, nice lad. Stole a car when he was 11. Convicted, assault with intent to rob. Convicted, dual robbery. Convicted, armed robbery and assault. Nice little trio, our three friends, aren't they, Sergeant?
Not exactly. Do you want Canvas brought in, sir?
Yes, do that. Oh, and, Sergeant, bring the other two along, but keep them separated. Don't let any one of them know that we have the other two.
Nothing highly dramatic, merely routine, Scotland Yard routine, recognizable as standard practice by any policeman in any large city. Bring him in for questioning. But it always helps to have a few facts on which to base the questions. With this in mind, and knowing their underworld, Inspector Bowers and Sergeant Wood repaired to that certain bar where Matty Canvas held parties for his friends.
Nothing much here.
Well, there may be. Keep your ears open. Another pint of ale, please.
Right you are, sir.
Oh, now, Larry, let me wait on the gentleman.
Seat yourself, Miguel. Seat yourself.
Oh, well, down the hatch.
Right.
Patience. Frequent the bar. Wait. Keep your ears open. Don't talk. Just wait.
Say, Larry, you hear they picked up Matty?
Yeah, and the other two.
Rod, too? That kid?
Well, I, for one, ain't sorry. Gives the place a bad name having kids around with guns in their pockets.
Not bright.
Canvas ain't bright, that's for sure. Lets himself get bunked out of 5,000 quid's worth of stuff. Gets mad and works the kid like that there Rod.
Oh, well, so it goes, I always say.
Another couple of pints, please, miss.
Oh, yeah, sure. There you are.
Do you know a lad named Canvas?
Me? I don't know nobody.
How about a kid named Hamilton?
You think I'll keep track of everybody comes in here?
Yeah, that would be difficult. I thought I heard you mention Mr. Canvas by name. So did my friend here.
Then you thought wrong.
We don't encourage conversation with the elder.
No, I don't suppose you do. Care to have a drink on us?
I'm not certain that I drinks with cops, mister.
More routine ahead. More routine for the inspector and the sergeant after they left the bar. They checked descriptions of the men seen at holdups and robberies prior by some months to the tragedy in Queensbury Street. In one case, a description tallied with Matty Canvas. Mr. Canvas was invited out of his cell and into the inspector's office.
All right, Canvas. You've been identified on the Davis job. You'll do a good long stretch for that. You may as well tell us what you know about the Queensbury shooting.
I don't know nothing.
Turn King's evidence, Canvas, and you'll get off easily. Otherwise, it's a hanging matter.
You can't pin that one on me. I was miles away. I can prove it.
Well, suppose I told you the kid's been talking his head off.
Rod? Talk? Not in your life. He's too scared somebody will cut his liver out.
Oh, all right, Canvas, if that's the way you want it. Take him back, Sergeant. We'll give him plenty of time to think.
No luck with Georgeton either. But the kid, there was a chance he'd break. Just a chance. The inspector took it.
Look, boy, your pals are saying that you held a gun that killed a fellow in the Queensbury holdup.
I never had a gun.
Maybe they're framing you, lad. After all, you're pretty young, 17. You won't hang. They will. So naturally, they say it was you.
I didn't. I never touched the gun.
Canvas says you did, that you had the 32 all the time.
I never did. They can't say it. They can't.
But they do. Both of them told me. Looks to us like they got together to put the job on you.
Well, why shouldn't they? They might have to die.
There were only two guns. They had them. You've got to believe that. You've got to.
We don't have to believe anything except evidence.
If you had the guns, if I told you where they were, I said it. I didn't mean to talk.
I did.
Keep talking, lad. It's the only way to save your neck.
My neck?
If you held that gun and pulled that trigger...
All right, we threw the guns away, both of them. The 45 Matty had and the 32 Jack had. We threw them in the river from the quay at the Lancashire Wharf. If you can find them, you'll see. Maybe there'll be fingerprints. You've got to find them guns. You've got to.
Ballistic report, Inspector. The 45 fired the bullet we found in the woodwork. The 32 killed the man in the street. And it's funny, half the cartridges in the 32 were rimfire. The other half was centerfire. Those didn't go off. If they had, chances are there'd have been a lot more murder.
And today, if you're interested, you can find that centerfire bullet in a place of honor in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
It's an accepted fact in police work that 80% of the occupants of our prison either were talked there or talked themselves there. In this case, it was patient police routine plus the talking of young Rod Hamilton, which put Rod behind bars for the rest of his life and brought Georgeston and Canvas to the 13 steps and the rope one morning at 8 o'clock. There's a postscript to this story. The use of a gun by an English criminal is rare. Nor in England do the police go armed in their normal course of duty. The Hamilton case was one of the more obvious symptoms of a post-war disease of violence. The death of Georgeston and Canvas was not without its effect on this disease. For days, weeks, and even months after their execution, pistols, guns, knives, many of them perhaps innocent wartime souvenirs, others of more dubious origin, were found by the police on rubbish heaps, disused gardens, on the mudbanks of the River Thames. The criminal world of London had come to terms with their traditional enemies at Scotland Yard. And perhaps, after all, the innocent man had not died in vain. The bullet that killed him, the centerfire bullet, remains in its customary place in the Black Museum. And now, until we meet next time in the same place, I tell you another story about the Black Museum. I remain, as always, obediently yours.